Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the same old Arsenal podcast, coming to you at this fabulous Tuesday evening. Whether you're listening to us back on your commute home from work, whether you've had a day working at home, you're just preparing your dinner, listen to us wax lyrical about what was a fantastic evening last night at Emirates Stadium. To do that, I'm joined once again by the fabulous James Johnston. JJ, last night at the Champions League. Been a long time since we said that.
Yeah, it really has. I had short hair the last time we said that, so yeah, it's been a very, very, very long time. But no, I couldn't be happier. Great win.
Yeah, and it was a fabulous evening, wasn't it? I mean, the build up to the game, having lost 1-0 in Porto, there was so much riding on it. There was so much anticipation. I was watching a lot of Arsenal accounts, the likes of Charles Watts, etc., talking about the build up to the game, and I was just getting so hyped for it yesterday. So many nerves jangling in there as well. But the atmosphere at Emirates Stadium last night was something else. I mean, the way the game started and the scenes at the end of it as well, absolute pandemonium. I've not seen anything like that since Brentford really, but last night was definitely something special. For you, JJ, I mean, just going into the game, what were your feelings about it?
Oh, I remember a couple of weeks back when we lost it, didn't we? Me and you come straight on after, and you said, "Oh, James, we got 3 weeks. We got 3 weeks," and it felt like the longest 3 weeks ever, didn't it? Because you just want to when you lose games and in the ways that we were seconds away from getting what was a really good draw, I thought, away. And okay, we weren't as good as we normally are on the day, but you'd have been like, just that ends 0-0, happy stuff, we'll beat them at home. And when it didn't go your way like that, and you get caught out by an absolute worldie, you want to right that wrong as soon as you can. And I'm saying that as a fan. So God knows how much that ate away at Mikel, at the players, knowing that they've got to wait 3 weeks to get this, corrected. And yeah, I'm so glad that they did. Was it perfect last night? Not really. I think we weren't as bad. We were discussing, weren't we, before we come up? I don't think it was as bad as some have made it out. I think certain players were not up to their usual standards, and we'll probably touch on that later on. But yeah, how can you not be happy winning a game like that? It was absolutely fantastic. And
No, it's
I
weird
saw
to win that
some.
way, isn't it?
No, and I saw some, James, as well, saying the atmosphere was dead last night in there. They said it wasn't as good as it could have been. Well, I watched from home, and I've got to say, I don't have a sound bar, mate. I just use the sound that comes out of my telly, but it was loud, mate, coming through. I could tell that there was an atmosphere in there yesterday. It looked really, really good.
Yeah, the
It was
build
one
up
of
to
them
the
where
game.
you were like, "Oh, I'd love to have been in there."
Yeah, the stadium pre-match first 10 minutes was electric. It was something else, and then the first 5-10 minutes of the game was exceptional as well. I think naturally the atmosphere it's not going to be raucous throughout the entire 90 minutes. That's just not how it goes in any stadium. I think Porto's game plan definitely played a part in that, the way they slowed it down right from the first minute, trying to con the referee, it taking so long over every single throw in. That definitely doesn't help make a great atmosphere. But I thought the Arsenal fans getting on the back of the referee, berating the Porto players when they were taking so long over the set pieces, etc. I thought we did a really good job of that. And the scenes at full time, I mean, it's very rare that you see a packed out Emirates Stadium after the final whistle. Normally a lot of people, are already making their way down the aisles, with a couple of minutes to go, and you start to see empty seats dotted around. But last night, even at the end of the game, for a good 5-10 minutes after the full-time whistle, and bear in mind it was at 11 o'clock at night on a weekday, packed, people going absolutely bonkers. Great stuff to see. And after the game we had against Brentford as well, another tough game where we really had to grind it out, I think it just shows that this team has got so much character. They've done so well to win that game, and in a way I think it's good for this team to have won a game in that manner, because it's not something they're used to. And I think there are going to be more games to come like that, but I don't think there's necessarily going to be games as tough as that this season, where you're coming up against an opposition that, with all due respect, had no interest in attacking. That's not to say Porto didn't have their chances. I mean, they tested David Raya in the first half. They hit us on the counter a couple of times, but it was quite clear, and I'm sure any Porto fan would admit themselves, that they were trying to defend from minute one. I think someone even put out a video on Twitter of them literally just practicing defending their own box for the entirety of their warm-up. So it was always going to be a tough game. And that goal at the end of the first leg completely changed the dynamic. I don't know if we'd have seen a different type of Porto if it had ended 0-0. Would they have come out and played a bit more? I'm not too sure. But for you, JJ, I mean, I think it's silly to ask the question of did you expect that game plan from Porto? But do you think we weren't as effective as we have been in those free-flowing games where we've been scoring goals for fun because Porto, who I think you've got to say are a very good team as well. I mean, they're not in the Champions League for no reason. I thought they were very well drilled, very well executed, very well managed. Did they not allow us to play that way because of their game plan?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, is it good on the eye? Not at all. Not at all. But why, when there's enough video analysis and everything else out there now, James, especially of the Premier League, because it's, broadcast pretty much everywhere around the world and everything else. Why would they, after watching Arsenal score, what was it, 36 plus odd goals in a month? Why would they go, oh, do you know what? We'll try and play football against this lot when we're just pumping teams left, right, and centre that have tried to play. I mean, look at Burnley the other week. I admire the fact that Vincent Kompany thought he could go toe to toe with us and play football, but he paid for it. David Moyes thought he could go toe to toe, paid for it. So I blame the refs for allowing them to get away with as much as they did. I mean, a guy getting stretchered off for cramp, James. I've never seen this in my life.
No,
Unbelievable.
I couldn't actually believe he went off on the stretcher. I
For
was fully
cramp.
expecting him to just walk off after the
For
stretcher came
cramp.
out.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And I blame more the officiating that they let them get away with some of the stuff that they did. But yeah, no, I don't blame them for applying that game plan to us at all. It's a knockout competition. It's two legs, and you sometimes you got to be cuter, smart, or whatever way you want to go about it. Then allowing someone to completely dominate you, which I think if they did try to play, we probably would have done. They didn't allow any gaps, James. Other teams that we play in this competition, like I said, they might go front foot and try and go toe to toe, but they'll leave gaps in behind. They did until Jesus come on quite late. We had no real, I mean, like not really that Havertz gets in behind and runs about anyway, but they restricted Saka. I mean, Odegaard had to drift so out. Well, I was being a nerd earlier, mate, looking at his heat map. He's so far on the right hand side because Saka had to do dog work to try and defend that Wendell that was bombing forward. So, yeah, I think, given the basis on how they did it the first leg, they were going to play exactly the same.
Yeah, and I think let's quickly talk about the referee because this is obviously not the meat of the podcast. We don't want to gloss over it too much, but the officiating I thought last night was just as bad as it was in Portugal. I think a lot of people were anticipating that we were going to see home advantage, the game be a bit more free flowing, him allow a few more things to go. And in some cases he did, but I could probably count on one hand the amount of opportunities where Porto tried to con the ref and he just waved play on. But it seemed to be every time Porto players went down, they were quite obviously holding their head because we know that when they do that, the referee is obliged to stop it in case it's a head injury. Now, this rule in general, going off on a massive tangent, really has to be looked at because how easy is it for players to go down now and feign a head injury and the game has to be stopped? It just seems to be such an easy way to stop it happening.
I don't, again, chat's active, so correct me if I'm wrong because there's probably a lot of them in here that know the rules better than I do. Is the Champions League like the Prem now, where if you do go off with this head injury and you come, have you got to wait? Is it a minute and a half or so that they make you wait till you can come back on again in the Prem for it now?
Well, I mean, based on last night,
because
the amount of
I
players that
didn't.
went off, that did not
Exactly.
happen.
Yeah, because I'm like, if they start applying that in the UEFA competitions, you'll stop this easy. If you go down to what is it, 10 or so men for like a minute and a half or so, like in the Prem, they'll stop it. They won't. That won't carry on at all.
No, certainly hope not. And yeah, the officiating was definitely a big source of frustration last night. But obviously, Porto played a part in convincing the referee to make those decisions. Let's talk about that first half, mate, because it was the same team that we saw against Brentford, more or less. Trossard out on that left-hand side. I think people, myself included, would have liked to have seen something a little bit different, whether it be Jesus on the left, Reece Nelson out on the left, potentially, just someone a bit more direct. And I know people weren't overly convinced by Trossard's performance last night. I'm going to have a bit of sympathy with him because I think the way Porto played didn't suit someone like a Trossard. Trossard wants to cut inside. He wants to try and get round people. That just played into Porto's hands. They wanted him to come inside. They wanted him to slow the game down at every opportunity. And that's essentially what Trossard does. If you look at him, he doesn't really run past the fullback. He likes to take it in, get into the box as close to the goal as possible, which against a lot of teams works very, very well. And I think that's why he's working so well up top or in central areas for us. But I really felt we missed the directness of someone like a Martinelli, and to have him out was obviously a massive, massive blow because we couldn't get in behind. But I suppose my question to you, James, is do you think we're going to play another team in the Champions League that is going to be so defensive minded as Porto were? Because you can't imagine we're going to come up against a Barcelona, a Bayern Munich, a Real Madrid, maybe Atletico Madrid if they get through.
Well,
But
you've just took the words out of my mouth. The only team that's left that I think would do a similar sort of game plan is Atletico Madrid. I know a lot of people have said about Inter Milan, obviously because they're an Italian side, but trust me, there's a question that Amanda put in there about who do we want and who do we not want. I can tell you straight away who I don't want.
no, I still have flashbacks to that horrible Europa League tie in
Yes,
2017,
yeah,
18.
yeah,
Griezmann
but
doing the Fortnite dance in front of our
oh
fans.
god,
Oh, God.
I don't want Inter Milan, James, because I don't think over two legs we're astute enough to deal with them. I think the way Inzaghi at Inter Milan is so underrated as a manager. The way that he's got this, he's doing 3-5-2 in ways
Well,
that
look at what he's doing with Mkhitaryan.
it's
It's
sensational.
unbelievable.
They're play along for me. Us, Inter Milan, and oh, who else was it that I was? Who was out there? Who else was it that I said earlier? I can't remember off the top of my head now. But to watch, mate, it's so entertaining to watch. It's unbelievable. So I wouldn't want them, and I wouldn't want City as well, because I think over two legs playing City, especially when we've got the crunch in the league, that helps Liverpool. And I can't abide Liverpool or Scousers, so I don't want City
Yeah, I agree with
at
you
Inter
there.
Milan. But the rest of them, I'll take the rest of them. I'll
So,
have whoever.
so let's answer that question quickly. Who would you want?
Anyone but Inter Milan or City. I'll take
I
any of
I
them.
think for me, someone else has put it in the chat room here. Bayern Munich. I would really like Bayern Munich. I think there's a real opportunity to get a bit of payback for those 10-2s that we had not too long ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd really like Bayern Munich to knock Harry Kane out of the Champions League and Eric Dyer as well. I mean, I say that they'd probably end up knocking us out. But I think having watched a couple of Bayern games this season, I really think they're so susceptible to damage. They would be my pick. But also, I'm still going back to that Robin van Persie red card at the Camp Nou, so I wouldn't say no to Barcelona. I really think we could have the beating of them because I think we all know Xavi is going to play expansive football against us. Tuchel, I think he would do the same thing. If that was to happen, I really think there'd be so much space and joy for us in behind. So, yeah, let's wait and see. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Leandro Trossard put us 1-0 up yesterday. Brilliant goal. Brilliant finish from him. Just when you thought the goal wasn't coming 5 minutes before half time. But we have to give the plaudits to Martin Odegaard, who just had magic feet in that moment. Weight of that ball and the intricacy to play it through, three Porto defenders that were all within about 3-4 yards of him. Unbelievable pass, mate. Unbelievable. But then the finish as well. Great goal and a great time to get it as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you say there earlier as well about Trossard. When he can operate in that space, I think he's one of the best finishers that we've got in the club, James. I think him and Martinelli are probably the best two for me. I think they're absolutely lethal when you get them in that sort of area, and they can do that side foot finish in the goal like that. And yeah, it was all from Odegaard. I mean, are we going on Odegaard praise now, or are we holding fire, James?
Well, you can cramp it up to 30 odd %, but let's
Oh,
keep that for the end.
yeah, unbelievable yesterday. Unbelievable. What just not just the passing and everything, but the energy levels on this guy.
Yeah, do you remember that chance that should have come to something else as well, where he won the ball very high up the
Mm.
pitch, and unfortunately didn't come to anything. But it's not just this game that I think he's really gone up a level in terms of work rate, but these past couple of games, this run that we've been on, where we've been putting teams to bed so convincingly, he's been at the heart of that. He's been absolutely magnificent. Obviously, the goals, the assists, they're great as well. But for me, I don't really care about that anymore because his work rate is so good and he's contributing in a way where you don't necessarily need a statistic to see what he's doing. Yeah, he's been fantastic, hasn't he?
Yeah, and you know what? I've been on here with Alan and everything, and I like Alan. I think he's great, and he said it before, and I have agreed with him. He said, when has Odegaard grabbed a big game on his own and tried to pull Arsenal through? And I think last night he single handedly was trying to win us that on his own at the end. He was just, yeah, it was. I mean, he had Havertz, the battering ram behind him. I didn't know he had that sort of energy level. He must have covered some ground yesterday as well. He was pressing from the front with Odegaard at most times, and yeah, I just thought he was sublime, not just on the ball but off it as well. Yeah, and again, captain's performance, first one takes, wins the toss and goes, I'll take the first one in front of our fans, set the tone, and then they got to try and catch us. And yeah, it was just superb, mate.
Well,
Absolutely brilliant.
well, let's actually stay on Martin Odegaard because I think he is worthy of having his own segment within this because I was going to talk about that with regards to his penalty. I mean, being the first one to step up and take it in that situation, I know people have been a little bit on the fence about him being named captain in the past, and he's not someone that's going to scream, shout, and be that guy. I think we're all very aware of that, but in terms of leading by example, not only did he do that on the pitch yesterday, but for me, stepping up and taking that penalty in what has probably been our biggest moment in God knows how many years. Like in terms of an individual moment in isolation, if he misses that penalty, things could go bad, real bad, real quick. So for him to step up and score it as well in such a high pressure situation, I think he's probably silenced any doubters that think he shouldn't be named captain.
I hope so, because I'm like, what more has he got to do? What more has he got to do? Based on that last night, as much as we've got other leaders around in the pitch, which I do believe we have, we had one who thinks he's a leader that come on and do me a favour, drop him out. But the ones that are actual leaders on the pitch,
Just for those who don't know, who are you referencing to there?
I think everybody does know. He's Mr. Let's all get in a huddle after we've conceded because I'm large and in charge.
Oh, Ollie Zinchenko.
Drop it out, mate.
Ah.
Drop it out. Awful. How did him and Nketiah come on, James, and look more tired than players that have done
Well,
nearly
hang on.
No, but how?
Well,
How?
we will get onto it. We will get onto it, mate. We've got an incredibly boring 45 minutes to talk about. And we will just very briefly touch on the second half because it, in all honesty, was not great. Porto, again, I think it was quite obvious that they were quite happy playing for penalties. I thought Pepe in that second half, it's not often I'm going to throw praise on opposition players, but you've got to take your hat off to a guy that is 41 and putting in performances like that against guys that are, in someone like Saka's case, virtually 20 years younger than him. He's half his age pretty much. And what a performance it was from Pepe. But we could have done better, I thought. I think we evidently looked quite tired at points in that second half. I really thought our passing started to waver a little bit. I thought our first touch was quite poor in a lot of instances. We just couldn't find a way through them. It was like playing through really sticky treacle at times. I mean, was there anything good that you can take from that second half?
For me, the big one was the Raya save from that Cohen Sao. And then luckily the guy was offside, wasn't he? And also, James, I thought in that second half of the normal time before he come off, and I think all game really, I've got to go back to him. Kivior, James, he gets better every game. Every game I see him, he gets better. He made one mistake where the ball was played long and it bobbled, and he thought it was gonna, and it went over his head, and the guy was and he was like, bugger. He turned round, sprint, I'll win it back. Superb, mate. I really, really like him. I Like I said a minute ago, every time he plays, he's getting better and better for me. And you can't, as much as Tomiyasu's back, as much as Timber's doing, training, and Zinchenko, you can't take this guy away from being left back at the moment, because he's doing. For me, he's playing so well. You can't drop him. You cannot drop him, because he's earned every right to be in that position at the moment.
And I think we've got a brilliant defence as well. There's nothing I would change about that back four. We've got 4 big guys, 4 proper defenders. And someone tweeted earlier that having Kivior in the team is basically like having a left-footed Ben White. And that's a really good comparison, because if you look at the two, okay, Ben White, I don't think it's wrong to say, is the superior player at the minute. But what Kivior does, his composure last night in what is probably the biggest game of his career, just look at some of those moments. If you look at his game in isolation, he was so calm, so composed, passing excellent once again. And I think with Martinelli on the left-hand side, who now has a bit more defensive cover behind him, which you don't get with Oli Zinchenko, I mean, I think it's working so well. And he's been a massive contributor to why we've been so good in recent weeks. It's no coincidence that he's come into the team, started playing well. And obviously Ben White on the other side is a huge contributor as that playing as that inverted guy as well, making those overlaps. I don't think we're actually seeing the inversion as much at the minute. And I don't think we necessarily need to, because you've got such a well-balanced midfield. I mean, Jorginho again last night. I mean, he lost the ball in one dangerous area. But apart from that, again, stellar. Absolutely superb.
Oh, yeah. His legs went towards the end. That's all it was. I saw a lot of people like, oh, God, what's going on? Like on Twitter, they're like, I'll get him off. His legs just went. Other than that, for me, but everything that Jorginho does,
do you think we found
ticking it over?
Do you think we found our perfect 11? Now, I mean, obviously Martinelli comes in for Trossard, but apart from that, what are you changing about that team?
Yeah, at the moment, nothing. Yeah,
even with Partey back, you're not changing him for Jorginho. No, completely agree.
James, I said to you months ago, as much as I last season watched Thomas Partey and thought he was fantastic, now I'm looking at, you can't rely on the guy, James. It sounds horrible, but I don't even think about him in my head as an option, because I just don't believe that he'll sustain it.
Okay, very interesting.
For me, it's like Jesus, when he come on, I thought was very good, James. But again, he's another one. You've got to prove your fitness to me before I'm saying that I want you back in the starting lineup.
Yeah, and I think even with Partey now, at this point in the season, when the game against City comes around, I'm not throwing him into the starting 11 for that game. I'm sticking with the midfield 3 that's working. I'm probably not changing a lot about the team, apart from Martinelli coming in for Trossard. Apart from that, the team stays as it is effectively. And then, I mean, interesting comment here from Avon. Jorginho can't play every game. Very true. I just think we have to manage his minutes when we do get through to we've got through to the next round of the Champions League. Might be a case of start Partey in some of the games, bring him off around 60 minutes, bring Jorginho on, or even bring maybe someone like an El Neni on. Who knows how those games play out?
When you've got £105 million Swiss Army knife that can play when he can play 6 and 8. I mean, he completely took over. He looked like his legs started to go a bit towards the end as well, but then he just turned into, do you know what? I'm just gonna be an English version of Pirlo and just ping these beautiful long ball. Oh, I was sat at home just going, oh, there's another one. There's another. They were like golf shots, some of the balls he was playing.
Well, I think it's interesting you mention that, because Declan Rice, for me, was one of the ones as well that was trying really hard to single-handedly win that game. He wasn't doing it in the same way that Odegaard was by, chasing. I mean, he did do his fair share of chasing and harrying as well. But those balls over the top, trying to find those openings, trying to make things happen in instances where there just weren't gaps. There wasn't space on the pitch. I mean, like you say, he he's just going up again, levels upon levels upon levels, and him in that left 8 role. I spoke about it so much after the Brentford game as well, but I think it's just a match made in heaven. I think it works so well. Before we go on to talk about the next section of the podcast, we do have a question here from Karen Russell. Please do make sure to get your comments in the chat box. We'll try and answer as many as we possibly can do. But Karen has to say, what do you make of the disgusting comments made by their manager towards Mikel in his press conference, and that he's also made similar comments towards the likes of Tuchel, Pochettino and Guardiola?
Yeah, for me, after all the times that he's done it, especially when he loses to English opposition, it rings a bit hollow for me, James.
It's nonsense, isn't it? It's absolute nonsense.
For me, I look at it and I know Arteta's very animated and it gets on a lot of people's nerves. It's got on mine previously. There's times where I'm like, what, wind it down, Stuyvenberg, like, give him a tug, tell him to stop it and everything else. But Arteta does not come across to me as somebody that would say something about somebody's mum. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, it doesn't feel to me like that's something he would do. I don't think
I would find it.
I could see, I like most humans, especially in the heat of battle, I could see him laying a few F's in, and this that. But to say, your mum or whatever in Spanish, whatever it is, something, whatever your mum, that's to me, that's just not Arteta. Do you know what I mean? If it's been reviewed, if they're looking at it on a camera and it gets proven, I'm happy to be proven wrong. But also, James, as well, I'm from the Zidane school. So, as most people know, last year, I lost my mum. If you make a joke about my mum, regardless of where we are, you may very well batter me, but I'm throwing hands. So, again, it speaks to me about the character of the guy, that he allows 4 people to say stuff about his mum but do nothing about it. Because if you say stuff about my mum, I'm cracking you in the face. Don't care. So I don't know. I just think he's a very, very salty guy, very sore loser.
Interesting comment here from our co-host Chris that says it's absolutely something Arteta might do. I can see him say that. I think it's nonsensical purely because, is that a word? That doesn't sound right. Nonsensical. I don't know.
Yeah, nonsensical. I think is the way to pronounce it.
Nonsensical is not the word. That probably means something.
That's probably what I called him.
Yeah, yeah, but you know what I mean, because he's done it to so many other managers. He said such similar comments.
And it's always English clubs.
Always, yeah. I mean, I just find it really hard to believe, unless it is something that every single manager has said, and it's such commonplace in football that no one else talks about it. Because I could definitely see some really harsh, snide things being said between managers. I mean, Conte, Tuchel, we all know what happened in that game, things like that. I mean, we don't know what was said, but we all know it got very heated. I'm certain these things are said at points in games when things do get heated, especially the game last night where there was so much riding on it, tempers were high. I'm going to choose that it wasn't true, and I really hope that is the case. Arteta strikes me as a man, who's got a great deal of respect and wouldn't play into something like that. But look, it's football. Let's believe it didn't happen. I'm fairly sure it didn't. And let's get on to some of the nicer questions, eh? Is Saliba actually crazy? His celebrations are next level bonkers. I do think the guy is completely mentally unhinged. If you look at the celebrations towards the end of the game, I had such close eyes on him when that last penalty was saved from David Raya, and the way he's just going mental, tongue out, battering his chest, almost pulling the badge off his shirt. He loves Arsenal, doesn't he, mate? I love the guy so much. Love him to bits.
Yeah, I mean, he did not have his greatest game last night. I think it was one of the worst ones I've ever seen him have for Arsenal. But I couldn't stop watching the video, James.
No, me neither.
Of all of them are in the pile. They're all jumping, but there's just one man on his own, and he's always like that, isn't he? I remember the goal.
Same against Brentford.
Yeah, he's just on his own. just on his own, in his own land, having his
And
moments.
it's, do you remember going back to the Bournemouth game last season, Reece Nelson, where everyone's celebrating with Reece and he runs off on his own to kick the corner flag?
Yeah,
He's just an
yeah.
absolute nutter.
I can't remember as well. There was another one. I think it might have been, could have been Rice against Man United this year, and they're all in that little corner, and he's just with one guy holding the guy's face, like, yeah, like yelling in this guy's face, and it's just all the others sort of turn around and are like, "Oh, okay, just." So I guess it's just a thing where they're like, yeah, let William do it. William's just having a moment over here, lads. So just let him crack on.
It's not just him though. I think so many of these players that we've got now. I don't want to go as far as saying they are fans of the club, but it definitely feels like with someone like Saliba that he's so invested in Arsenal. And I think you could say the same for someone like Declan Rice. I mean, the way he was geeing up the fans before the game, like he went around the entire North Bank, giving it the arms. But Odegaard, I mean, we know he's so invested with the supporters as well. I think the connection between the fans and the players in my time supporting Arsenal is the best it has ever been. I think it's so good. There's not one of these players that I look at and I think, I really don't like you. I really don't think you fit the direction that we're going in. I even look at, players like Cedric Suarez. I mean, we all know that he's someone that needs to be moved on, but I'm not looking at him thinking he's got a bad attitude or anything like that. I mean, he's not a bad guy to have
Oh
around the
no,
team.
I 100% agree with you that on attitude alone, yeah, it's a great group. There's some that footballing wise, I've got massive questions about their ability still, but no, in terms of attitude, 100%, yeah. It's a great group. As much as I was happy the other day after Ramsdale had that terrible error, but he had that amazing second half. I was so happy last night for David Raya, James, because I sat on this podcast near the start of the season when we signed him, and it was still so visceral, and it was borderline quite abusive, some of the stuff that was coming out from people towards him. And I was just like, he's the better goalkeeper. And in the long run, he'll prove it. And I don't like to say I told you so, but I told you so, people. I mean, Amanda's in here, if she's still here. I tell her all the time, the more you listen to me, the better you'll start feeling.
Absolutely, and we'll get on to talk about David Raya because I mean we've got the penalties to come in what was just an all round.
But what a big! It was just a big moment. I'm like, can you start giving this bloke some love because it wasn't his fault. Arteta made the decision, and this guy's arguably got the biggest move of his life. You could see when he was presented how over the moon, not just him, but his family. I mean, he had that shin pad with all of his family because he's like, my family are the most important thing to me. They're all on his shin pad, and he showed it to Henri and everything last night on CBS or whatever it was, Paramount Plus in America. And I'm like, now, fans, just start giving this guy some love back.
I mean, if he doesn't get any love after what he did last night, I mean, Chris, again, in the chat room, special moment could be career defining. And it should be.
Yeah.
In his Arsenal career, it should be, because that, to send us through, I mean, to almost single-handedly, at that point in the game, when it goes to penalties, it is goalkeeper versus goalkeeper, pretty much. And he came out on top by a country mile, saved 2 penalties, brilliant saves, very close to having a third saved as well. He should be endeared by the Arsenal fans now. And I think the love we have for Ramsdale, I mean, he's English. He had all the other parts of him in terms of his personality that made him such a lovable bloke. And I think a lot of fans, including myself, do still have a lot of admiration for Ramsdale. But what we saw last night from David Raya, he did also make some very good saves in the game as well.
Well, I was just about to say, James, he was superb through the game. And there was a bit in that second half of the injury time where Zinchenko and Jesus are divering a bit, and then Zinchenko completely, like I said earlier, how he comes on and looks more tired than people have done 100+ minutes, I'll never know. And they got a corner, and I was like, oh Christ, in my head I'm like, oh Christ, I don't, why have you? I was cussing him massively. I was like, oh, why have you done this, Zinchenko? But then straight away, David Raya, jump, ball in, there we go, resets, and I'm like, what a bloke. I'm just like, what a bloke.
And there was another one as well where he collected it, where it wasn't from a set piece, but there was a cross into the box, very congested penalty area, and he just comes out on top. I mean, he's so commanding and so calm to have his presence in the penalty area. I mean, I'm won over by him now. I mean, to
I
see us
love him, mate.
through to the next round of the quarterfinals in the Champions League. I mean, we've not been here in a long, long time, and he's played an enormous part in that. So I just hope, he plays every game between now and the end of the season. And he just gets the love in that he deserves, because I think that will be, as Chris says, an Arsenal career-defining moment for him. And he's just going up levels upon levels upon levels. But let's get back into some of your questions. Question here from Jen Town 1969. Do you think this Arsenal squad has the most Arsenal fans in it than in the last 10 years? Now, that's interesting, because it's hard to say. Players keep their cards very close to their chest when they talk about who they grew up supporting. But I look at this group and I think so many of them, I don't know if I'd call them fans. That's probably not the right word, because they're players, aren't they? But guys that have a connection with Arsenal, that are very passionate about the club, that love being here. I mean, just look at Saliba. I mean, you'd be silly to say otherwise, wouldn't you? I mean, he's so invested in this team. But then you just look at, I don't know if you saw that graphic that someone put up on Twitter not too long ago of all the Arsenal players writing down what it means to play at the Emirates Stadium, and just, I think it was Ben White that put down privileged. And you look at Bukayo Saka, who's come through the ranks, Martinelli, who we signed at a really young age and has come through the ranks as well. Odegaard, our captain. I mean, there's so many players that are Arsenal. Do you not think?
Oh, yeah. I think the best way for me to phrase it is that, to me, they get it. I mean, in the last 10 or so years, James, I could count on one hand the players that I thought really got it. Mertesacker was in there for me. I always thought he knows what being Arsenal means. Arteta, I thought, got it. Obviously, the Hale End people get it. Tierney got it when he joined. I think Tierney now still would get it. He'd still love to
And
be
he,
here,
he
really.
still does. I mean, we still chant his name, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't necessarily. There's a lot of them that are childhood Arsenal fans. I mean, Saliba was, Zinchenko was, Timber was. Obviously, Odegaard supported the lot that I hate when he was a child. He's openly admitted that. So, but doesn't matter, because he's with us now and he loves us now. So that's the main thing. But yeah, I think in terms of, like I said, the ones that get it and understand it massively. And I think a lot of that comes from the manager again, in terms of getting fans back on side, getting that connection that we've spoken about with fans and club and players and everything. I think
Yeah, and we miss that
that's
so
one of the
much.
biggest things that he's done. And I think, I'm not saying he should go now before people go mental, but after he does go, I think that's arguably going to be the biggest part of his legacy, is that he's got fans and team back on side.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the group he inherited as well, there were some players in there that I think we had a real connection with. Tierney's one that you definitely talk about. Bellerin was one at the time when he was there. But I just think, guys like, I mean, Aubameyang's the one I always go back to. I know he was named as our captain, but I really think a lot of fans struggled to sense a connection with him. Even down to things like when he turned up in those outlandish cars and things like that. I just think we've got such a humble, well-drilled, head down, focused group at the minute that take their football seriously, that
Well,
take their lives seriously. They're
he'd
so
refused to
intelligent.
do interviews, wouldn't he, James? That's the thing. He was captain of the club. We were on that run where we kept losing to all the teams that were the animals, weren't it? It was like Wolves, and it was Brighton, then it was Palace, and it was like everything. Is Seagull, Eagle, and we'd lose those games. He was captain, and then whatever broadcaster we were on after the game, Saka would stand there and have to do it. And he was, what, 19, 18 at the time? And it's like, you're captain and you ain't got the front to stand there and answer questions about what's gone wrong. Because at that time, his own game was terrible. And yet, we'll wheel a kid out. Smith Rowe sometimes would stay, Maitland Niles or whoever would go out there. And it was just like, see, these are the characters. the young lads are the ones that are pulling the group. The older ones are the ones that are letting us down, and it's the young ones that are.
Yeah.
And Arteta clocked that early and went complete young. At times have I been critical of Project Youth, as people have called it? Yes. But it's starting to show the fruits of its labour now. But also with some of the buys that we are doing, like a Jorginho, like a Trossard, like a Declan Rice, that are older, that are experienced, slotting them in, they're doing the business, mate.
Oh, we've
Look at
got the perfect blend. The perfect blend. Having someone like
exactly.
Saka and Martinelli at 22, and then you throw in a Declan Rice, even a Kai Havertz. These guys aren't really much older than them. They're 2-3 years older than our young boys, but I mean they've been there, they've done it in a lot of
Oh,
instances.
I'm older than all of them, and so
Well, you and me both. So
yeah,
for
yeah.
me,
It's just
don't go
yeah,
there.
yeah. I know I'm saying they're older heads, but yeah, they're still all younger than me.
Yeah,
So
it's a horrible thought, isn't it? I mean, I hate the fact that I'm 2.5 years older than Declan Rice, and he looks about 5 years older than me. It's really, really nasty that. But look, let's not go into that. Let's end with a couple of your questions in the chat room. Another one here from Charlie L. How concerned are you about the upcoming break? I'm slightly concerned it may damage the momentum we have. Really good point, and I'm inclined to agree to an extent, but I do think if we had Chelsea this weekend, having just played 2 hours worth of football, the mental fatigue and the physical fatigue going into that game, I think would have been really tough. That would have been a really, really difficult game to have played just a couple of days after. So I'm welcoming the break. I've not got a problem with it. I do have a problem with the international break because I just don't want our players going away. But other than that, I'm pretty at peace with it. How about you?
yeah, I agree with the main man Melvin at the bottom there. I think it's come at a great time. I think, like you said, we need it. I get where Charlie's coming from. It just like you as well. Just so annoying that there's an international, and they're friendlies as well. It's not
Just
like
not
they're.
needed.
It's not like they're. Yeah, it's not like they're. For anything. I mean, international football to me is dross unless it's a World Cup or a Euros anyway, James. Even this Nations League thing that they've made now, just why? It's pointless. It's pointless. They already play enough football as it is, and you're making more competition. I mean, expanding the World Cup and the Euros as well, so that there's more games because they want more money. It just, it all stinks to me, mate. But yeah, no, I think this break's brilliant, and hopefully, if we can start hooking players, the better. We've already told Martinelli he's not going, so I hope that we hook even more of them if we can,
That'd
because
be lovely, wouldn't it?
we've actually, like Chris put in earlier, we've actually started to get the group back, and we've got options if we need them.
Well,
You
we
know,
have a fully fit team now, don't we? More or
nearly.
less.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I
It's just
mean,
Timber to come back and Martinelli, and that's it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, for me yesterday, I thought the subs weren't great, as I mentioned before, and I think they should have been earlier as well. I think that's the thing. That's still my only little tinge with Arteta, is that I'm like, there's that delay, and then
Yeah, I think in
it's the
those
amount that you use, it's the amount that he uses and the ones that he uses
well,
that still.
in those big moments, in those big games, I do find he's very reluctant to
Yeah,
sway away from his starting 11. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily because he doesn't trust the guys on the bench, which I do think has been a problem in the past. I think it's because he has so much trust in the people out there. Because I was looking at the team yesterday, and apart from Jorginho and Trossard, I was struggling to think what other changes would I make at this point because it's such a big game. I mean, Saka can do something out of nothing. Havertz, you want him on the pitch because he can pop up at any moment. You're not taking off Odegaard, are you? You're not taking off Declan Rice. I mean, who do you take off? You don't take off these key men at that point in the game. And I think it worked out in the end. I'm not sure Eddie Nketiah was the right sub to have brought on. I thought he was okay when he came on, but I know a lot of people definitely weren't a fan of his substitution. I'd have liked to have seen maybe a Reece Nelson. I thought we lost a bit of defensive stability, well, actually quite a lot of defensive stability when Zinchenko came on in place of Kivior. I thought it was quite stark, but I think he was kind of forced into that substitution because Jorginho went off. But Zinchenko, I thought, was very, I don't want to say very poor, but quite underwhelming. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, given that he's just coming back from injury. But yeah, I'm with you on the substitutions. Should have made them sooner. I think it's interesting that Smith Rowe's not had a look in the past couple of games. I think the longer this goes on, the more inclined I am to believe that he's gone in the summer. He's just not had a
well,
sniff, has
if
he?
you go back to Sheffield United, James, there was apt opportunity to bring all three of those Howland boys on, and he didn't bring on any of them. He didn't bring on Nketiah, he didn't bring on Nelson, and he didn't bring on Smith Rowe. All three of them sat and watched.
I can't work out the Smith Rowe one because before some of those games, I mean, he was getting minutes off the bench. I mean, I can't remember what game it was, but he played half an hour off the bench.
Yeah, was it Forest?
He started against Forest.
That's it. Yeah, I was going to say. I swear he started one. Yeah.
I don't know what's happened, if the guys ahead of him are just outperforming him or if he's just been really poor in training. But he might as well not even be on the bench because he's not even looked at as an option, which is so bizarre. And with Partey back now, I mean, it's hard to see him getting minutes. But I do want to wrap up on just a couple of final questions. Fiona Scott, thank you very much for your question, Fiona. I hope you're keeping well and thank you for tuning in as always. Do you think we will beat Man City?
Christ.
I think it'll be a draw.
See, that's what I was just about to say. I don't know if we'll beat them, but I definitely think we'll get a result. I think we'll get something. I can't remember the last time I felt that we wouldn't lose there. And that to me is a progression. I'm going to cling to it. I'm clutching at straws.
Well, a draw would be a good result for us.
Yeah.
I know people think we should be going there and winning. Look, City at home have an impeccable record. To go there and win is a big ask. Can we do it? Of course we can do it. Of course we can go there and beat them. I mean, based on how they played against a Liverpool team ravaged with injuries, I definitely think we can have the beating of City. I thought there was so much space in behind, but we have to not wilt under the pressure. We have to play with our heads up and be pragmatic. You know, if we sit back and we, wilter, then we'll lose, to be quite honest. But if we play our game and play well, which we should do, we shouldn't be fearful going there. They should be worried about playing us. Then absolutely. I think we can win, but I think my head tells me it's going to be a draw.
Is it true that if Rodri gets booked at the weekend as well, that he can be suspended
against Newcastle? I believe it is, yeah.
Or is it just league bookings? Because again, I still don't know how this all works.
Well, that's confusing, isn't it? Because if you get the booking in the league,
obviously if he gets sent off in the cup, he's done, isn't he?
Yeah, that won't happen, though, will it?
Mate, wouldn't it be hilarious if he did?
It would be. It'd be lovely. But I don't actually know the answer to that question. If anyone in the chat room
knows, he's still like, what is it? Is it 68 unbeaten or something? He is.
Yeah, that's the thing.
When he starts,
when we beat them, but if you look at his game against Liverpool, he wasn't great.
No.
Like if you look at how Luis Diaz turned him inside out, I definitely think. I don't want to say Declan Rice could have the better of him, but it's going to be a big battle. I think our midfield could really do a job on City. But look, that's 3 weeks away. Let's not think too much. Well, it's 2.5 weeks now, but let's not think about it too much. Last question from where did it go? It was one from Karen Russell. I can't find the question, but it was to do with Tierney having space in the team. I can't find the question, but the question was along the lines of, do you think there's still space?
I've got it here. Talking of Tierney, do you think there's space for him at the club?
Talking of I can't find that anywhere.
It's just above Barry Burns' comment. There's two Barry Burns.
I've got it. There we go. Yeah. So, answer the question, mate. Go for it.
Sadly not. I think, I think his time is done. I believe that the players that he's got coming back into that position now are more trustworthy and will do what he wants them to do more than what Kieran Tierney will. And that's not me saying that Kieran Tierney's bad, but I think the way that we've developed as a team doesn't suit Kieran Tierney, sadly. And he's openly admitted it himself. He said, I tried to do this. But we seem like if we've gone from inverting from the left-hand side, then if it's conventional left-back, then he's better than all of them. So, again, I don't know, but I can't see it. I can't see it, James.
No, I think even though Kivior's doing so well and he's not inverting, I still don't think it's conventional. I really don't. He's not exactly bombing forward, overlapping all the time. He's playing a role where he's effectively playing as a very left-sided centre-back, because that's why I think it also suits him so well, because sometimes when the shift happens and White inverts, everyone switches and goes a little bit more centralised. So I still think Tierney could do that. I mean, he played in a back three for Arsenal when we won the FA Cup and was exceptional in games against the likes of City, against a very good Chelsea side at the time when we won that FA Cup. So I definitely think there would be a place for him if we were to carry on playing this way. However, his injury record is a big sticking point, and it's continued to be a problem this season at Sociedad. So on that basis, I don't think he has a future at Arsenal, sadly. And, Barry Burns said it here. He thinks he'll end up back at Celtic. I think that's probably on the cards.
I think Barry's spot on. I said
Yep.
this the other day. I think that I saw somewhere that we were, obviously accepting that we're going to sell him at a loss. And they were talking about that it would be between 15 to 20 mil. I think Celtic could afford that, and they'd happily buy him back. So, and I hope he goes there. I mean, he did. I hope he goes somewhere where he can play every week. Preferably not another team in England if we can help it.
Yeah, and like Barry Burns says there, wish him all the best. Hope he gets over his injury problems, and I wish the same for a lot of our players that have dealt with injury problems, because they are talented. I mean, someone like Thomas Partey, I hope he goes somewhere and plays and fulfills, not the potential because he's coming up to 31 now, but is able to play on a consistent basis, plus 30 games a season, and do well, because these are guys that have ability, but we just need people that are dependable. We need people like Kai Havertz. We need people like Gabriel. We need people like Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, that are just available for at least 35 games of a Premier League season. And to be one of the best teams in Europe, you need that availability. But JJ, on that note, I'm going to end it there. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Arsenal through to the last day of the Champions League. Sum it up in a word for me.
Marvellous.
Marvellous. It is indeed. Thank you to everyone that's joined us in the chat room. Been fantastic having you. I mean, there's close to 500 of us watching at the minute, which is absolutely sublime. So thank you ever so much.
500 people want to watch me and you.
They want to watch you, mate. They're not.
That's unbelievable.
For you.
Oh, come on, behave.
No, stop it.
I just answer the questions. You do all the hard stuff.
Oh, I try. But yeah, thank you for coming on, mate. To those that don't know, JJ has his own YouTube channel, the James Johnston Football Channel. Make sure you go and check it out. Follow him on Twitter at LOLCallJames91. Make sure you check out our sponsor, Ruth Beckott. Check her out on Twitter. Check her out on Etsy. She's got some fabulous pieces of work up there. Any sort of Arsenal memorabilia you want, make sure you go and check out Ruth's stuff.
She's done a brilliant David Raya saving a penalty piece already. That's how good Ruth is.
And how could you not want that? In less than 24 hours, she's got that up and done. So make sure you go and have a look at that. Subscribe to the Same Old Arsenal YouTube channel. Drop a like on this video. Subscribe to us and rate us across the various audio platforms. But from myself and JJ, up the Arsenal. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.